All right, so Rocket got bounced from the playoffs, and it's like, what is next for this crew of mainly youngsters? They have, and they're almost in a sense kind of like Oklahoma City Thunder, where they got a bunch of young people, and you got to think about before Shea really took off. Like, but we always knew that Shea. We didn't think that Shea maybe get to this point, but everybody knew that Shea was going to be a player from the time that he even got traded from Paul George. But you look at all the players and picks that they didn't have, player that they got from Wiggins to Isaiah Joe. I was like Jalen Williams, Chet. I was like, they always had an abundance of players and stuff like that, to the point that like there's some people that they had to let go and stuff like that. That's on other teams. They're not saying they're doing good on other teams or whatever, but they had to go other spots in order to even get some playing time or whatever. Um, so the Rockets, I was like, basically, what should they do? Should they just keep this core together, try it again, or should they go and try to trade for somebody? Now, what do I think they'll probably do? I think they will try to get somebody. I think they will. I think that pretty much I was like, I feel like the team has gotten enough assets to now that I feel like them and the owner is going to be like, all right, we see what this team can be. We might just need to pick up somebody. Now, what I think they probably should do, I think they should give it one more year. I think they should go ahead and give it one more year and see what Jalen Green can do with one more year after he done. Because I was like, don't get me wrong, I was like, he did not play good in the playoffs. But I do think that, hey, I was like, I understand that his contemporary of Cade actually, I was like, look good in this year's playoffs. But hey, it was a struggle for him, even though we could see like, okay, he might be that guy. But it was a struggle for that team for such a long time. That I was like, I was like, damn, I know Jalen Green had been inconsistent for quite a while, but he really makes me think. And I was like, yeah, I was going back and forth this guy on Twitter, Devin Booker. And I was like, to me, that's what he probably is more similar than. And if you think about it, Jalen Green, Devin Booker is kind of really similar. Bo just kind of came in, scoring type of dudes. I was like, while they could score a bunch, they were sort of just empty, just points or whatever. We remember like Booker going for like 70 and stuff like that, and it's kind of like, okay, it's a crazy feat, but it's also like, okay. And just years of the team losing until like the year before, like, when they got into the bubble and before they got Chris Paul, that thing started to click. Same thing with Jalen Green. Sorry. You just over here just playing ball, whatever like that. There's a whole bunch of kids on the squad. I was like, kind of also made me think of the Wizards a little bit too, the one with McGee and Nick Young and stuff like that, where just a bunch of kids on the team or whatever. I was like, then they started getting rid of some of them, bringing Ime Udoka, changed the whole game. Now, all of a sudden, last year, they made a really strong run. That was basically Devin Booker in the bubble. Boom, playoffs here. So, I was like, he got a big as well with Booker and with, like Booker had Ayton. I was like, he got Sengun. Now, I was like, we see Sengun's that guy, but guess what? Sengun's also got a chance. I was like, even though he played pretty good in these playoffs, he also seen that, hey, he got to do different things. He got to get, I was like, a better shot, close to the basket sometimes and stuff like that, which is fine. This is all their first years playing in the playoff. That's why I think you should give it one more year to see what Jalen Green comes back with next year and stuff like that. See what Bill. I was like, bro, go ahead and bring Fred VanVleet back as well on that option of $40 million and stuff like that, and just see what the team goes through. Now, if they want to go and make a smaller trade or whatever, then sure. I was like, cause they got enough pieces to do that without jeopardizing anything. But they're gonna have to bring back Fred just because the money he's making is going to have to be used in if you do a trade, or if you do, depend on who you trade for. Now, let's just get into basically the options that I was like, people talking about. Talking about KD. I don't really like that one for the Rockets, nor do I really like it for Kevin Durant, to be honest. I was like, I feel like that team, I was like, if he goes there, there's no veterans. It's just young people, which I was like, it's cool. Cause I was like, you don't want an old team, especially when Kevin Durant is old the way he is. So you do want some young people in there as well. And it's like it'd be good if there is like if you keep Amen Thompson and stuff like that along with him or whatever. So I think that's fine. But I was like, the trade doesn't work because I was like, you can't give him Jalen Green because Booker's there. I guess you could. I was like, you're going to have to use Fred VanVleet there, but you're also going to have to send Dylan Brooks there as well, which leaves no veterans really on that squad or whatever in that type of way. And I'm like, do you sort of take away some of the from that team that I feel like those pieces would be better with Kevin Durant, if you get what I'm saying. So I was like, I was like, now granted, I was bringing another team and stuff like that, but I just don't think that Kevin Durant on a team that pretty much went to the playoff the first year really works. I was like, to me, I was like, he needs to be on a squad that had been onto the playoff a couple times, and they youngsters are probably 27 or something like that. Like, I was like, I'm just using it as an example. I'm just saying like Orlando wouldn't be bad. You have to I was like, just because of like you have Franz and you have Paulo there, that it's like they've been to the playoffs already like 2 or 3 years. That's like, okay, there's a little bit more season there. I was like, that'd be better to me. I wouldn't send them to Orlando. That's not what I'm saying. But I was like, I don't like them there. Giannis. Now, I don't really like that one either. But I was like, I could see them. They were like, hey, you at least gotta try to me. You at least gotta try. Now with that one, the crazy part about that one is that I've heard people talk about Giannis and they're just like, okay, we give him Jalen Green and I was like, no, you're gonna have to give him Sengun. I was like, you're not going to be able to have Sengun being the big there. That's not how that's going to really work. He need to go there. To me, I was like, I think the better compliment would be if you did have Jalen Green along with Giannis there. Send Sengun out that way. I was like, I think you're going to have to send Amen Thompson there because you need to give them one of the, I was like, because you give them Whitmore, Reed Shepard, and stuff like that. But those are prospects that, yeah, you don't know what they could be, but you ain't played them enough to see what they got either. So, to me, you have to send Amen Thompson along with Sengun over there. But I was like, but from Milwaukee, you do got enough pieces that I think that you can get, that you can start this rebuild a lot better. You get what I'm saying? Like the Rockets got from Joe Smith to, which I was like, I sort of would like if they would keep him. I was like, I don't know if they can. I was like, I think he might have an extension coming up, so I don't know if they can. I know he doesn't really play the 5, but I just feel like with him and Giannis, he's a stretch big that it might not be too bad or whatever. I was like, in the West, they only really got one big, and that's Jokic. Other than that, there ain't no bigs. I was like, the Thunder, yeah, but I was like, I mean, Hartenstein, yes, but I was like, chest tall guy, not big man, or whatever. And I was like, Rudy Gobert, tall guy, not big man. You get what I'm saying? I was like, you can sort of manipulate some of these things or whatever like that. But I was just thinking that I was like, with Giannis, you have a big dude that's like Brook Lopez there. But I was like, Milwaukee, sure. I was like, the fit with the Rockets, whatever, it doesn't matter. You got Giannis. You got the best player, and we figured the hell out of everything else out. That's why I said Jalen Green there, because it's like, hey, his shooting, and I was like, him playing the guard spot, probably what Giannis needs. But if not, you can always flip that other piece of that asset as well too. And if you are able to keep Fred, then I was like, I think he works. I think he works with Giannis as well too, because he's not the same type of needing the ball in his hand the way Dame is. That I think he can while he get his own shot. I was like, it's not as dominant, and he don't need the pick and roll in the same way to me. I was like, I think he'd be a little bit better. He could be a spot up shooter as well. Now, the option, I was like, I don't think it's gonna happen, but being thrown out the possibility, I was like, totally came from. I was like, it was a thought years ago, not now, but from Jeff Teague and his 520 crew, is Jaylen Brown from the Celtics. Now, if Tatum was still around, I would give this a lot more credence. But since he's not, I think it's a lot harder. But I think that wouldn't actually be a bad trade. I was like, the Celtics, would they do it? No. But I don't think it's a bad trade. I was like, Jalen Green. I was like, Whitmore, Shepard. I was like, you could develop him in that way when it's time to get rid of Pritchard. It'd be even easier. I was like, he goes over there, meet back up with Ime Udoka. He gets to be the guy there. I was like, you still got Sengun. So I was like that. I was like, is it gonna happen? No, but I would not sort of be surprised if that isn't also something that we hear about of an attempt. Like, that don't mean, you got to call them in. You got to call and see if they're able to do it. That don't mean they're going to say yes, but you got to still call and see if they do it. I was like, but I see that as another option that they could do. And I like that one better than the other ones, but I think the one that's really more realistic would be Giannis. I was like, I do. And I was like, anybody else, really? I was like, I think it all just depends on if you're punting on Jalen Green or not. I think if you're punting on Jalen Green, I think you got a lot more options because there's guards you could sort of try to go for. But to be honest, it's like, I think the better option is, I was like, who you gonna trade for? Trae Young? No. I was like, anybody else that's really out there? Not really, because all the young players are going to keep their players, LaMelo, he gonna stay with the Hornets. I was like, you ain't trading for none of the people that the Kings got. You know what I'm saying? So I think you just stick out with this year, see what happens after that. But yeah, you go ahead and make them calls to those two players. Doesn't hurt. You gotta try a little bit. Kevin Durant, not my bag, but that might be what they feel like they getting in. It won't take that much to trade the Phoenix. So there's that. Like, I was like, I don't think you got to give away a lot of your assets, and maybe you got another move up the sleeve because you're going to have to give up some salary, and that's a couple of those. That's the Dylan Brooks and stuff like that in order to make that work. So anyway, what do you think the Rockets should do? Stay pat, or go big, go home, swing that thing. Anyway, let me know what y'all think. Till then, peace. I'm out.